I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
So I was sitting at home and got a phone call from another winemaker, and he was very stressed out on the phone, and I was thinking this is very odd, and he tells me that he's had an accident at the winery and lost a lot of my wine.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale.
Bridget Mac is the driving force behind every facet of Werkstatt Wine, a progressive winemaking venture sourcing fruit from Mount Gambier and the King Valley, regions central to an evolving journey. The word of Werkstatt is spreading far and wide, and I'm thrilled to have Bridget join me. Hi, Bridget. Welcome.
Hey, Shanteh. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I have been wanting to meet you and see you in person, but have been such a fan from the very release of your first wine, fascinated by your story. And so it's my honour to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
So tell me a little bit about where you were born.
I was born in Melbourne. I've lived in my hometown. I still live in Melbourne, which I think is a little bit confusing for people. Obviously, I get wine. Well, get wine from South Australia and Mount Gambier, and then I've been making it in Geelong, so people often get confused about where I'm from. Born and bred in Melbourne. Pretty much grew up in Moonee Ponds, this suburb just sort of west of the city. Lived there up until I was, maybe like 18, 19, then had to get out of the family home. I was sick of my parents at that point. I love them, but, you just need to forge your own path. Lived in Sydney for about 5 years, and then, lived in Berlin for a couple of years after that. Had a baby and then moved back to Melbourne. So that's kind of, a brief history of where I grew up and where I've lived.
So tell me, I can hear your Aussie accent, but you've had a pretty amazing career and changes of career so far. Tell me what drew you to Berlin of all places?
So moving out of leaving high school, always wanted to be an artist. Studied a diploma of a diploma of visual arts at RMIT for a couple of years. And then, that's kind of around the same time that I moved up to Sydney, and lived in Sydney, working as an artist for that whole period, putting on exhibitions, creating work. And at that point, I wanted to further my art career, and Berlin is, I guess, an art mecca. So, a lot of artists live there. It's cheap. There's always incredible shows that you can go and look at, exhibitions, that is. So it just seemed like, the sort of like the right place to move to create work. Just before I moved to Berlin, I'd been awarded a couple of art prizes. One was a young self-portrait prize that the National Portrait Gallery put on. So I was a winner of that, and also a grant to complete a book of interviews and photographs of German artists and musicians who were living in the GDR, so the German Democratic Republic, after the Nazis moved out the East and West Berlin. So I wanted to interview, the people who were living under that regime and how they, made their artwork under such dire conditions and, having to work with that regime. So, that was something that a project that I was taking over there and wanted to complete, and, ended up doing. It culminated into a book, which was really fun. So, Berlin was, I was 20, I guess I was in my early 20s, I was young. So it was a time that I was just soaking up everything. And during that time, I got really, just fell in love with the language, the German language. It was actually the first time when I was living there that I got to try German Riesling. So that was kind of a revelation for me. At that point, it wasn't even on my radar to make wine. I was very much in the art world, doing photography. when I had this Riesling, it was kind of like, a moment where everything kind of went off in my brain. Like, what is this? Like, this is some kind of nectar of the gods. It's delicious. But just, that left that feeling in my brain and continued on my art trajectory. And it wasn't until, I guess, I moved back to Australia that I kind of started thinking about that again. And that's kind of, I will get into that a little bit later, but that's where the sort of story of why I love Riesling and work with Riesling so much started.
So, Bridget, I think it's fascinating when you tell me a little bit about your life before wine, because once we know you go down the rabbit hole of wine, you never really leave it. Because I think photography and art is so much aligned with something like wine. We don't do it because it necessarily pays us a lot of money. We do it for the love of it and the creativity and the fascination. When you came back to Australia and you kind of, wine was a little bit on your mind, where did you go about kind of furthering that? How did you what were the questions you were asking? When were you thinking, oh, maybe I'd like to make wine one day?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't move back to Australia from Germany and just, want to get straight into wine. It was a gradual process. I didn't mention, but during my time in Germany, I met my husband there and got pregnant. So moving back to Australia was kind of like the priority to have the baby here. It's this weird thing which, I often get asked about, how did, you make the move from being an artist to a winemaker? And it's something that that sort of like thing that happened where I had a child, my brain kind of stopped, kind of flipped at some point. It's I don't know. I think only some, people who have had children can kind of understand. So at some point I was like, I don't want to be an artist anymore. I am not finding joy in this. I can't come up with the creative ideas that I used to. And it was a really frustrating time because prior to that, I was like, I felt like I was rocking it in the art world. So yeah, it was a very strange time. So it was around, I guess, 2013, 2014. And I'm like, oh, I'm still young. I'm in my mid-20s. I need to figure out what I want to do with my life. Because obviously art isn't doing it for me right now. So, I'd had this moment with the Riesling in Germany. I grew up in a very wine loving family. My parents were always drinking Australian wine. And actually, I was thinking yesterday about this. Do you remember Blockbuster Video? You'd go there to rent movies. So we had a Blockbuster Video, and to rent a movie, you had to give your password, and our password, which my parents had set up, was claret. Lol. But yeah, we just grew up in a wine loving family. So I was always went to wineries when I was a kid, and never really appreciated it. So yeah, I had that sort of history, that background from my parents. Thank you. And then this moment with the Riesling, and I've always with photography, always worked outside, always loved that kind of idea that each day is different. You have a project that you might be doing somewhere, it might be a commercial project where you're shooting people at a beach. You have another job, or you've got another project where you're up in the mountains doing something awesome. I love this idea of being outside, and I've always loved nature as well. So I guess all these things culminated into, well, maybe there's something there. Maybe I could give this winemaking thing a go. Not really thinking too much about what it involves so much. So I reached out to a winemaker who my parents were familiar with. It was Ray Naddison of Lethbridge, and asked him. It was 2019, so it was probably 2018. I got in touch with him and just said, "Hey Ray, can we meet? I'm interested in trying a vintage and seeing if it's something that I'm into." And that was my first vintage that I did. And obviously, working with Ray is is amazing. And he's definitely the kind of person that, is influenced by art and really feeds art into winemaking. So it was kind of a perfect match in the end. Because, yeah, you're right. There is wine and art do go hand in hand. There's so many ways that you can, just see how, it obviously, visual art is visually sensory, but wine is sensory in another way. But you're creating something which is beautiful, and people are enjoying it. And this is what art is. It's something that people can, love and enjoy and appreciate. And it's more than just. Yeah, I think wine for me is more than just a drink or, just something to consume. It's something that you need to talk about, and something that, needs space and time. And yeah.
I think you're so right. And particularly with photography, I can see a lot of those parallels, and like you said, you liked being outdoors, you liked that every day was different. With photography, I think that appreciation of moments and time and change, with photography, you must, it's you're capturing a moment in time, and it's not perfect. It's just that moment. It's never going to happen again that way. Understanding vintages and wine is the same thing. It's like, you're capturing a moment, and it speaks of that time and that climate and that soil and that day and that mood and, where the moon was at. And so I think that you coming into it with that kind of feeling of it's going to be changing all the time is such a wonderful way, because you're not trying to, create the same thing every day.
No, yeah, I love that. It is capturing a moment, and photography is exactly the same. You can never get that same moment again, no matter how hard you try. And that is an absolutely beautiful thing. And it's one thing that, just drives me making wine too. I just love it so much.
I want to circle back to Riesling, because I think that that's a huge part of your story. And I want to kind of circle in on, talking about German Riesling, because like you said, you probably have had tried a few, if your parents were drinkers, different wines, growing up, but German Riesling is something entirely.
Funnily enough, I didn't try any German Riesling growing up. No, and that's why I had this sort of epiphany in Germany. My parents are staunchly Australian wine drinkers, bless them. Thank you very much. But yes, it wasn't until Germany that I got to try that sort of, just like Moselle style. So yeah, it was a moment.
So good. No, that's my next question. I was like, where was it from? Was it Moselle? Was it off dry? And entirely different from the wines that we make here. And like you said, nectar of the gods. Riesling was the first wine that you released. You once said in an interview that the timing on a Riesling pick is like catching a sunset or a sunrise, which I absolutely love. Tell me about your first experience making Riesling.
First experience making Riesling. So it was actually at Lethbridge. Ray, I'm just going to, rant on about Ray. I'll stop at some point. But Ray, he's the kind of winemaker who wants to further other winemakers. So he had an opportunity to get some. Actually, it was juice, because it was from Delatite up near Mansfield. He had the opportunity to get some Riesling juice for me, and wanted to, help me start my own business. So, the juice came in, and obviously he was also making wine with it. And I had my 1,000 litres, which he'd set aside for me. And, I had this feeling that I wanted to, stylistically, I wanted it to have texture. The issue with when you have just juice is that you don't have the option to, press it any harder, or, have a little bit of skin contact. So luckily he had been getting some Riesling from Henty that same week. So I asked him if I could have some of the stems from the destemmer and add them to my juice, and and some of the skins as well. Sorry, put them to my juice and have like a component that I could blend in and have this more sort of like textural sort of character within it. And so, yeah, I was able to do that. And so the first time that I made a Riesling, it was only 1,000 litres. It was from beautiful vineyard grown on granite or decomposed granite from Delatite. And that's kind of what started Werkstatt. That was really successful. Obviously, very small batch, but I think people kind of pricked up their ears, and they're like, "Oh, what's this? Who's this new producer?" And it just snowballed from there. Unfortunately, I was only able to get that juice that 1 year, so I had to look further afield after that. But it's not such an unfortunate set of circumstances now, because where I get fruit from is amazing.
It's so funny that, like we said, fleeting moments that come and go. But interesting that you kind of thought, I've got this juice, but I'd like to use a bit more kind of texture. How do I do that? I think I would think as somebody that's got juice from somewhere and you're in a winery, the first thing you might do is go, oh, maybe we'll put it into oak to see what that will do. But for you to kind of go that extra mile and be like, no, I'm going to use some stems and skins from this other site and blend that in. I mean, it just goes to show a lot about the workings of your brain and, not choosing an easy route, that's for sure.
No, there's always, I always take the hard route. But I am the kind of person that just like, I love work and I love keeping busy. So if, taking the easy route's not an option most of the time. I'm a sucker for pain, obviously. Like, people who know me, I'm not totally covered in tats, but, I've got quite a few tats. Just like, I think that's like safe to say that I'm not scared.
You also had a baby in your mid-20s, so you are used to pain and suffering, but hopefully you've come out the other side.
I don't think I have. I don't know. I've got a 14-year-old now, so that's a whole
different
other
kind of
world of pain and suffering. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Exactly. All right. So tell me about Werkstatt, how you came when you thought, okay, this is definitely for me. How do you go about naming a brand, making it authentic, and communicating that?
Yeah. So how do I come up with that? So I think, when I was making this Riesling, I knew that there was a bit of a gap in the market for, I guess, like this sort of more textural off-dry Riesling in the Australian market. So, I knew that I had something there that people were going to like, and I was obviously enjoy making and drinking myself. So I thought I want to lean into this kind of Germanic style and approach to the winemaking. And threw a few sort of ideas around for a name and ended up on this word called Werkstatt. Now, people out there who don't know what Werkstatt means, it means workshop in German. And I love this idea. Like, there's so many different sort of like stories behind the name. I'll go into a couple of them because some of them get a little bit art dorky. But basically, Werkstatt, workshop, I like this idea that, although I am, the only one making wine for this brand, I have a myriad of people helping me along the way. And that might be my mentors. It might be the people who are growing the grapes for me, people who help me in the cellar. There is a collaborative ethos. There's, it really is a workshop to make wine. Also, if you're not workshopping things and if you're not constantly changing and thinking and being inquisitive like you would in a workshop, then, with wine, then you're kind of like, I think in my mind, you're making, dead wine. So like having this idea of always workshopping, always wanting to try new things is really important. The other sort of art dork reason for the name, and it's a little bit of a nod to my history of being involved in the arts, is that stylistically, I love this this art movement which happened in the 1890s to like 1910s, sort of just before the Nazis took power in Austria, in Vienna, there's the Wiener Werkstatt. And basically it's an art movement which was really quite progressive for its time, very open to women and people, trans people, and people, who just wanted to make really interesting art. And obviously they got shut down eventually, but I loved, I guess as an art reference stylistically, the Wiener Werkstatt definitely influences the branding and the way that I sort of put the brand out there too.
I love that because it speaks so much about who you are and your experience. And after all, at the end of the day, that's why we do this, to meet interesting people and have wonderful experiences. And you've really put that into your brand. And I think you've communicated it really well because, on first glimpse of your bottle, I was automatically like, what does that mean? And who is this person? And, tell me all about them. I just wanted to know more. And that also came through when you tried your Riesling. It was like, wow, what's the thought process here? Why are they making it like this? So, and just so much intrigue, which I absolutely love. And I love your approach with texture in particular, because like you said, Alsace, Germany, there's so much breadth in Riesling and so much opportunity, but it still speaks so much of the place. So I think you really nailed that with your first release. Tell me a little bit about making your life hard again and driving 450 Ks from Melbourne to Mount Gambier.
Yeah, Max Allen wrote a nice little piece about this recently for the Fin Review. But it's I do a lot of driving, and I have a truck license because you just when you're getting grapes from so far away, you just can't trust anyone else to deliver them in a timely manner. And, deliver them, exactly when you need them. So every vintage for the last 3 years, I've been driving a truck 3 times, or more than, obviously. I've got 3 different picks down in Mount Gambier. So driving the truck there and back 3 times with fruit. But, it's not the drive. I don't really focus on the drive. I want to get fruit from this region because it's an exciting region. It kind of ticks all the boxes for me to make good Riesling and Pinot Noir. It's obviously metamorphosed limestone, so limestone that's been, I guess, turned into marble through the pressure of the volcanic activity, and the climate is quite cool climate. People get confused because they're like, it's in South Australia, it should be warm, but it's just on the border of Victoria, very close to Henty and Crawford River and all those beautiful Riesling growing areas. And, it's got that Southern Ocean influence. So you do get that minerality and also that salinity through all those things. I guess the only thing that if I wanted to make, what's the word? High altitude Riesling. It doesn't tick that box. It's flat as a tack. But you can't have everything. And I get the fruit from some growers down there. It's organically managed. And it's on this beautiful soil. So I'm very, very lucky to get this fruit. And the driving is just part of it.
I hope that you have some excellent tunes to see you on the way. Has your child ever come with you, or you do it all the time, that big drive on your own?
My son will come with me when I'm just going to visit the vineyard and not actually picking. But I have roped my husband in a little bit recently. He's an artist. He's a painter, but he's very helpful, and he usually comes along for the drive and feeds me food and I'm driving. He keeps me company. So I'm very lucky.
Good. I'm glad to hear that because it is a long way, and you've got to have something to keep you active and alert, especially imagine birds and all kinds of animal life on the way.
It's a killer. So, you've been picking all day. You generally, in the heat, and you've loaded all the fruit into bins onto the truck. And then, you've obviously driven the 5 hours there and then picked all day, and then you've got to drive the 5 hours back to the winery. So it's a killer. But it's just what you do to make good wine.
So many sacrifices. And you're also making some pretty amazing bubbles as well. And I loved watching the addition of the different wines that you have released, seeing your evolution and seeing the story unfold. For me, a lot of it kind of makes sense. And again, that comes down to how you communicate kind of what you're doing. But tell me a little bit about making fizz, because it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. And you've got some pet nat, you've also got some beautiful late disgorge stuff, and you've also got a Riesling sec. So tell me a little bit about fizz.
Fizz, I have always loved champagne. And for those of you that can't see me out there, I have a champagne bottle tattooed on my arm. Got that tattooed like way before I was this into wine. But so making a sparkling was something I've always wanted to do. Had a really cold year down in Mount Gambier. I think it was 2023. And it just lent itself into making sparkling wine. So I guess that year was an anomaly, but each year I will do a separate pick for my sparkling base. And that's generally, I make sparkling wine out of Riesling. And as of last year, I'm making a sparkling Pinot Blanc. So my sparklings I call Sekt, which is the German word, and it's basically, I don't know the direct translation, it's just what they call their sparkling wine in Germany. Sometimes you can get really cheap stuff, but there's also a lot of producers like Christmann, Kaufmann who are making exceptional Sekt in down in Pfalz. So I make Sekt do a separate pick, make the base wine, and then because I make quite a bit of it, I don't actually do any of the sparkling making at my winery. I send it off to a facility called Kilchurn, and they do all that for me. So it's not that interesting, because I wish that I could be doing all my riddling myself and disgorging and dosage, but I actually do get that sent off to a secondary facility. Sparkling is just, it's the most beautiful drink. I'm going to just rephrase it if we can go back, if that's all right. Sparkling is just such a fun drink, and also Riesling lends itself amazingly into a sparkling wine. If you haven't had a sparkling Riesling, go out there and try and find one. I'm very excited about this Pinot Blanc sparkling project that I'm doing as well. So that's going to be like a Solera non-vintage sparkling, which will be released, I guess, 10 years or so time. It's a very long term, but I just, I've always loved it, and love the versatility of those two varieties to it as well.
Oh man, Pinot Blanc makes so much sense for you. I'm such a big Pinot Blanc fan, and I have always thought, why don't people order this more when they're at dining? Because it is such a food-friendly wine, and has so many touch points of, like you said, texture and flavor and richness and salinity. Oh my gosh, it's just such a cool wine. And as someone that's worked in restaurants, I just always thought, it was a bit of a push. It was like Pinot Blanc, and people were like, oh, I drink green. I'm like, what about this? So I thought it was always a great little wine to kind of pour in degustations and things that people didn't know it was coming, because once you got it in front of someone, they really loved it. So it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
What you like.
Unsung hero.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, 2025 brought lots of new things into our lives, but at the end of 2025, not so many wonderful things for you. Tell me a little bit about the winery accident.
For those that don't know it, there was a winery accident where I make wine December 5th. So I was sitting at home and got a phone call from another winemaker, and he was very stressed out on the phone, and I was thinking, this is very odd, and he tells me that he's had an accident at the winery and lost a lot of my wine, and it's a little bit hard. Like, it was an abstract phone call. I was like, what? It's very confusing. I just I need to just have a moment with this. So I hung up and I was like, he's at the winery, he's lost all his wine. Oh my God, this is real. It's not some kind of nightmare. So I called him back and asked a few details, and yeah, he'd reversed a forklift into a tank of wine, of my premium Pinot. It's not just wine, it's my premium Pinot Noir, my only red wine that I make. And I'd literally just moved it from barrel into that tank to, put it together and get it ready for bottling 2 days earlier. So yeah, the forklift reversed into the door, and the door just gave way, and it's a big dig out door. So a lot of wine was lost in a very short amount of time. Amazingly, he was able to close the door and salvage about 500 litres. So all up, there would have been 2,500. So I lost 2,000 litres of the Pinot Noir. So he was able to salvage 500 litres of that. We bottled that in late December. That was a pretty hard day, bottling that small amount of wine. After you've gotten that far, nurturing it, and it's like just making sure that the wine is as good as it can possibly be. And it's been like really hard, but like obviously in the light of what's happened in Victoria with the fires in January, it doesn't match up. So I feel like I can't hark on about it too much. But like for a small producer like me, the only red wine that I make, it's been a huge blow.
I mean, I think you're being really wonderful about this, but I am asking you to harp on about it. But I think, this is your livelihood. It's something you live and breathe every day. And we are susceptible to the elements. I think we know that as people that work in wine, that there's going to be bushfires, and it doesn't make that any easier whatsoever. But something like this is so unexpected, and accidents do happen. But, I think it's okay for you to totally wallow in the fact that your beautiful Pinot was lost. It is the heartbreak grape. And I just think so incredibly unfortunate, especially when you got it right to that end point. You knew what you were in for. You sent me a bottle to have a look at prior to this podcast, and I unwrapped that knowing how much you'd lost. To see this wine just for shits and giggles, for me to have a taste before this podcast, it meant so much to me. And I really did try to put myself in your place, thinking about where do you go from here? And I think it's absolutely tragic. Now, we have had a few people rally around, and there is a GoFundMe page set up. So if anybody wants to visit that, you have had a bit of success with that. And I know that that will never really match up to what you've lost and the experience. But I encourage anyone to go onto that page, dedicate what you can. If it's $10, if it's, 50, whatever it may be. But how have you found the community around this incident?
Yeah. It's just been overwhelming. The GoFundMe obviously is just like, I find that quite emotional. I've seen people put money in there who I haven't met, that I look up to in the industry. Just people that I know who are also doing it tough have put money in. So I just as I said before, like I'm a hard worker. I don't reach out for a lot of help. So to do this was quite a big thing for me. And I had the support of Lena Berry to set it up too. So, just like little things like that. Yeah, of people putting in, people just reaching out to me and checking in. It's just been overwhelming, and it just reiterates how much I love this industry. Like I don't like comparing, but I do sometimes compare the art world to the wine world. The wine world is just so like loving. And people just want to see others succeed. Art world, not so much. It's a little bit catty sometimes, everyone for themselves. And yeah, the wine world, it just is so generous, people with their time, with, everything. And this just goes to show that as well. And just makes me, it lifts me up, and I think the reason I don't want to hark on about this so much is because there's great people out there. I think I just want to move on a little bit and keep making, to the best of my ability, really beautiful wine that makes people happy.
Mm. Well, you're certainly doing that. And the 2025 Pinot is nothing short of absolutely delicious. But there's not a lot of it. So please get on there and buy a bottle. You now know the story of what happened. And I'd love that you're looking forward. I think that when things like this happen, we have to kind of take stock, don't we, of what we've learned from it, and how we protect ourselves in the future. I certainly know that you've done a bit of that. But the last thing we want to hear is that this is, sullied anything and that you won't continue. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're looking forward, that you are going to keep doing what you're doing, because we need you in this industry. And we certainly need your wines because they are remarkable. So thank you, Bridget, for spending some time with me today. I do have a couple more questions before I let you get away and get back to, multitasking a million things that you're doing. Tell me a little bit about just living in Melbourne. It's a cultural mecca. Where do you kind of see your wines placed, and where do you want to see them poured?
Look, my wines are kind of poured in quite diverse venues, and I love that. I'm not after just pouring them into the top venues, and they are poured in some of the top venues, but I also being in Germany and hearing these people talk about living in the Democratic Republic, wine is for everyone. And, I do, there is this ethos with my brand. I'm not elitist. I think delicious wine should be there for everyone. I price my Riesling pretty reasonably. And I don't put it out. People often saying to me, "Oh, your wine punches above its price." And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I want everyone to be able to drink beautiful wine. So yeah, I'm happy if my wine is at the, the local trendy, young people's bar, and then also I'm happy if it's at the high end restaurant too.
Good. I like that. I think you're right. I mean, if you have a look on the website and look at where your wine's being poured, like you said, it's so diverse, but lots of very cool places that I wish I could be seen at or be drinking and eating at. And I love the uptake of all the different restaurants that have got on board. Bridget, tell me, if you could only drink 3 drinks the rest of your life, what would they be?
3 drinks. They don't have to be alcoholic, right?
No, whatever you want.
Okay, excellent. Well, sparkling water would definitely, if it's the only thing that I can drink the rest of my life. I love fizz. I love bubbles. It was going to be a toss-up between champagne or sparkling water, but it's definitely water with bubbles in it. Delicious. The next one would be bit of a wild card, but Jerez. People that know me know that I love Palomino and Jerez. So yeah, a delicious, nutty Jerez to start a meal is just what brings me joy. And then the last one would always have to be Riesling. I know that's boring, but I just love it so much. I just love it so much.
I'm so glad that you said that. And I really hope, I don't know, this is just a totally off kind of random comment, but I hope that I see your Pinot in a Riesling bottle forever. I think it says so much about where you've come from, and it stands out as a part of your story. So,
oh, thank you. I do get a bit of shade. Shade from that.
No, I'm all about it.
For having it.
All about it. It's only the people that don't like finding it at stock takes and they can't work out where it is, or it doesn't fit on the shelf properly. But I think it's fab.
Doesn't fit on the shelf. Yeah, I've had that. Thanks,
we
Shanteh.
can get down and have a glass of Riesling. I'm a still water person, but I am such a sherry person. So bring that on. I can't wait till we meet in person. I really am invested in your story, your wines, and the future of what you're going to do. I think it's incredibly exciting. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your life, and the very, very best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shanteh. I've had a great time.
Cheers to you.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram at overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.